So how about those Blade movies, right? It's gonna be so good. Glad they got, real talent on board like Mahershala Ali. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, I'm sure that, executives ain't gonna exec and screw this all up for everyone.
Not at all.
The movie's destined to make money.
Definitely gonna get made, for sure.
Just kidding.
As of this recording, the Blade reboot has been delayed indefinitely.
Apparently they put a Predators film in its place for next year.
Yeah, because Disney owns everything now.
I mean, Prey was good.
I did like Prey, yeah.
So, I mean, it's give me more like that. Sure, I'll take a popcorn flick Predator film. I guess that's cool. Still would like Blade to be in the MCU.
It brings a new layer of irony to that Wesley Snipes line in Deadpool and Wolverine. Only ever been one Blade, only ever gonna be one Blade.
I wonder if it was being foreshadowed in Deadpool and Wolverine. With that line, the studio might be like, oh, wait, people really want to see these characters come back, so why don't we just put them in their own film? I mean, the rumor is they're going to be working on an actual Gambit film again.
And I would watch the shit out of that.
Love me some Channing Tatum.
He made a name for himself out there.
And you know what, Steve? Speaking about telling people what we saw here today, do you want to get started?
Let's do this.
All right, hit that intro.
Two friends named Corey and Steve like talking about films and TV. They thought, hey, what if this was a show? That's how we got here, now you know. Wait, what's the name? That sounds terrible, go on. That sounds terrible, go on. We hope you stick around and have some fun right after our intro song. That sounds terrible, go on.
Welcome back, folks, to another fantastic episode of That Sounds Terrible, Go On. I am your host, Corey.
And I'm someone's host, Steve.
Steve.
Corey.
How you doing today, buddy? You doing okay over there?
Doing all right, yeah. It's a lovely day.
Any day where you're not catatonic while wearing a mask and stabbing at people makes me pretty happy.
It's a big if.
Almost as big as the film we're covering today?
Almost. We are tackling 1978's Halloween by John Carpenter.
Oh, it's not just by John Carpenter. It's directed by, it's composed by, and co-written by John Carpenter. That's right, folks. 1978's Halloween. We're finally doing it. I'm honestly really excited to talk about this one because I know it's a first-time watch for me, as well as a first-time watch here for Steve.
Yeah, we went into this a little bit blind.
I mean, I've heard about things here and there. It's a pretty famous film, so I know about some of the things that happen or what the general gist is of it. So there were things that were surprising to me while watching this, and there were other things that weren't so surprising. It felt a little bit like a trick, but it was so delightful I had to call it a treat.
Oh, I see what you did there, buddy. Yeah, trick-or-treating is a good time. You wear masks, you disguise yourself, and it kind of gets you questioning things. Sometimes I even question, don't I know you?
Don't you?
Let's find out.
Let's.
All right, first question. As we know, our big buddy Michael Myers sure does love a good mask and a costume on Halloween. So, Corey, what was the best Halloween costume you ever wore?
I want to say we actually answered this in a previous episode, but I love talking about it, so I'll answer it here. So when I was a younger kid, I was really into the Marx Brothers. And one year I decided I want to dress up like Groucho Marx. And I did. And I had a big fake cigar. And I walked around trick-or-treating the entire neighborhood. And I was just delivering one-liners the entire night.
Beautiful.
Easily my favorite one. What about you, Steve? What was your best costume?
That would have to be the one and only Captain Jack Sparrow. It was the most involved costume I've ever worn. Like, I had like a fake beard and the makeup and the wig with the dreads and the whole nine. And I went around asking everybody for rum. Not a single person would give me any.
That's because they thought you were homeless.
Tomato, tomato. Question 2. Now, on the theme of Halloween and tricks and treats, do you have a Halloween candy that stands above the rest?
It's not exactly a candy, but it is still a sweet, and I am gonna have to go with Halloween Oreos.
All right. I was afraid you were going to say raisins. That's good.
Steve, I would never choose raisins. Whoever chooses raisins clearly had a horrible childhood. And while my childhood wasn't always great, it wasn't that bad.
Glad to hear it, buddy.
But Steve, what about you? What's that Halloween night sweet treat?
Ooh, for me, it's got to be Skittles. I'm an oddball in that I do not enjoy the taste of chocolate. So I was everybody's best friend on trick-or-treating night because everybody got my chocolate. And in return, I got me some Skittles and some Sour Patch Kids, but mainly the Skittles. You really can't beat that fruity, sugary crunch. Skittles, if you'd like to sponsor us, hit us up on our social media.
That's right, Skittles. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube.
Pod the Rainbow. Question 3. Now, the main characters in this story all happen to be babysitters, and on Halloween night, they all have some form of sneaking out of their children's houses to go and hang out with each other and get into all sorts of shenanigans. So, Corey, was there ever a time in your youth when you snuck out somewhere?
All the freaking time. I never snuck out to meet up with anybody, so I've talked about it on the pod before, but I was on the highest legal dosage of Adderall that you could give anyone from the ages of like 12 until I was 18. And one of the things about Adderall is, it's really hard to sleep when you're taking Adderall. So I'd be up until like 3:30 in the morning, and I need something to do. So I would just sneak out of my house, and I would literally walk around the entire town of Henrietta. I would legitimately start like where MCC is, walk to where the high school is, loop around, and walk all the way back.
I bet that was peaceful as at 3 in the morning.
Sometimes it was, sometimes it wasn't. Thanks to my notebooks, I have recalled a few moments. One time someone demanded to see my cell phone, which I was poor. I did not have a cell phone. And when I told him this, he got very, very angry and came at me.
Ooh.
It's okay. According to what I wrote, I broke his nose.
Right on. Good for you. The nose knows.
But Steve, what about you? Have you ever snuck out?
When I was a youth, me and my buddy, who's also named Steve, true story, would have the occasional sleepover. And Corey, you've seen the house that I grew up in and the massive parking lot that's next door to it. So around about 2, 3 in the morning, we would sneak out to that parking lot with a can of bug spray, can of Axe body spray, and a barbecue lighter. Just to, burn stuff. And by stuff, I mean the spray that came out of the cans. We would make fireballs with them. We'd spray stuff on the pavement and then try to light it before the fumes went away. We were pretty awesome. And we did not destroy a single thing or hurt anyone.
At least, according to the evidence.
Don't worry about it. And now I know you.
And I know you have committed some crimes.
Yeah, just a couple.
All right, folks, that was Don't I Know You. Now, before we get to our next segment, just a quick commercial break.
Commercial.
Hey, folks, did you know that we're a couple of corporate whores? We will do whatever you say for money. That's right. We'll give an ad that promises the world to your potential customers for whatever you're trying to sell. Is it true? Doesn't matter. Is it going to work? Still doesn't matter. Give us $5, give us $10. We'll make all your dreams come true as long as your dreams are limited to having your product hawked on our podcast.
But Steve, what if I don't have an advertisement written for you?
Well, for a small extra fee, we can write one for you, aka make one up on the spot and half-ass it.
That's right, folks. If you have any interest in advertising with us, please hit us up on our Instagram at That Sounds Terrible Pod, or find us on Twitter by looking up That Sounds Terrible. Go on.
Slide into our DMs so we can slide into your ads. We're going to do an ad for you.
That's right, folks. Fill our bank accounts so we can line your pockets with that sweet, sweet internet money. Welcome back, folks.
Howdy.
Steve, listen, I don't know if you've noticed, it's getting kind of dark outside, and there's some people who start showing up at my house and they won't stop ringing my doorbell.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
I mean, it would be, except it's our wonderful members of our cast and crew.
Oh, it's the cast
As always, folks, the cast and crew is part of the pod where we talk about some cast members, talk about some crew members. Now, are we going to get to every single one?
Yes, and we're going to get to John Carpenter like 5 times.
We are definitely going to get to John Carpenter 5 times, if not 7. But Steve, we can't get to anybody else that many times. We just don't have the time available to us. But folks, if there's someone a part of this cast and crew that we don't touch on that you think we should have, be sure to hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page. We're going to kick this off with the man, the director, the co-writer, and the composer of this film, a John Carpenter. Carpenter is best known as the director and co-writer of 1974's Dark Star, 1980's The Fog, 1981's Escape from New York, and 1996's Escape from L.A. He's also known as the sole writer and director for 1976's Assault on Precinct 13 and 1988's They Live. He's also known as the director for 1982's The Thing, 1983's Christine film adaptation, 1984's Starman, 1979's Elvis, 1993's Body Bags, and 1986's Big Trouble in Little China. But do you think that's all he does?
Yeah, the end of list. You can't possibly do more.
Absolutely not. He's also a composer. He is composed on so many films that he is directed. I'll list a few off. We already talked about them. Dark Star, Assault on Precinct 13, The Fog, Escape from New York, Christine, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, Escape from L.A. Just name a few of the films that he's composed on, and I gotta tell you, he's got multiple talents going here.
Oh, he sure does. He brings that da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, except better.
Let's start with this theme song. First off, one of the most famous theme songs in film history, I would say. Anyone hears this, you know what it's from, or at the very least, you've heard it by this point.
Iconic.
I feel like iconic isn't even going to describe it. It's legendary.
Ooh, yeah, good word.
It's so much fun. I could just listen to that on repeat for the majority of the day. Eventually, I'd have to stop because it would get annoying, but it's such a good theme.
Oh yeah, it is creepy, it is looming, it does everything that we need it to do.
And speaking of everything that we need it to do, he's also the director, so let's talk about his direction in this film. These camera shots that he was getting, where he just kept positioning Michael off into the background, where we as the audience can clearly see him, but our characters can't. It makes it feel like a hunter is stalking its prey the entire time. I feel like I'm watching a National Geographic special, and I'm about to see a lion munch on a wildebeest.
And he really loves his handheld shots here. It brings up themes of voyeurism, when sometimes showing from Michael's point of view specifically, sometimes just a looming presence. It is creepy, and it sucks you in, and it's just straight up unsettling.
Now, before we get to the writing, we have to talk about the other co-writer of this film, and a producer on this film, a one Deborah Hill. Now, Hill is best known for also producing and writing 1980's The Fog, as well as the 1981 sequel to Halloween, Halloween 2. She's also known as the producer on such films as 1982's Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, 1985's Clue, 1987's Adventures in Babysitting, 1991's The Fisher King, and 2006's World Trade Center. She would even serve on the jury at the Sundance Film Festival and on the executive producer committee for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. Unfortunately, she would pass due to colon cancer in March of 2005. After her passing, though, the Producers Guild of America would establish the Deborah Hill Fellowship to support emerging producers. And in 2023, production would begin on a documentary about Hill's life and career titled Hollywood Trailblazer, The Deborah Hill Story. I really want to learn more about her life because, first off, you're serving on the jury at Sundance. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're part of the EP committee for the Academy. Even cooler. But you were clearly so well loved that the Producers Guild of America established a fellowship in your name after your death.
Yeah, that is wild. That is a hell of an impact. I
have to imagine she was an absolute sweetheart, which is weird to say about a producer, because they're usually known to be kind of assholes.
Yeah, they've definitely got a reputation. But, the right producer can schmooze anyone. They're all about making the movie happen, any way possible.
And I would say Deborah definitely did that here with this script. So let's go ahead, let's get into this script now. So the writing in here It's not really the dialogue that's telling the story. Like, yeah, the character of Dr. Samuel Lewis has some pretty solid lines, but a lot of this is in what people don't think of normally when they think of a script. It's in the actions. It's in what's actually happening. This is another script where there's very minimal dialogue, much like what we saw in 1979's Alien.
Episode 71.
And with that continuing here, it's so creepy what they're setting up, the way that everything progresses at this nice little pace. There's no mad dash to get to the end here, which is kind of representing how Michael Myers moves. Myers doesn't run. Myers doesn't jog. He doesn't even have a brisk walk. He just walks because he'll get to you.
He meanders. He moseys.
He does mosey. And the writing really brought that alive, I feel. I think that the idea behind this of, okay, what's his motivation? He's evil. Well, why is he evil? He's just evil. There's no explanation as to why one day this kid just snapped and stabbed his sister to death. There's no motivation for as to why he decided to break out of a mental asylum and go back to his hometown and start killing people again. There's no true explanation here, and that's what makes the character of Michael Myers so terrifying. He can't be reasoned with. His motivation is just, I'm here to kill people because I'm f***ing evil.
And he could be anywhere.
He absolutely could. He is legitimately the boogeyman that we all heard about in our youth.
Yeah. Also, the script, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like the OG slasher movie. Like, this has established the formula that people would be copying for decades.
It sets a tone, for sure, of what slashers are going to follow, which is, if you have sex, you're going to die in this film. Oh, are you doing drugs? You're going to die in this film. Underage drinking? You're going to die in this film. But some people are safe. Small children don't die. And that was a rule that was heavily followed for a hot minute.
Yeah, no, a big theme in slasher movies, and I know this more from school than from seeing them, but it's all about showing youth sinning and then being punished for that sin.
Which is so wild to me because a lot of people have said the same thing, right? And I did a bunch of reading on this, but Hill and Carpenter came out and were like, in a very rare moment of confirming, guys, no, the curtains are just blue. We're not trying to say like, oh, sinning is evil or anything. And Deborah Hill actually came out and said, well, I was raised Catholic, so that might have, accidentally came out in my writing, but none of it was on purpose. They just were set out to write a super scary story.
Huh.
But it's kind of wild though, how that turns out. And I think that you could still find symbolism in those things, even if that wasn't the intended purpose. There's still some commentary to be made here. And that's another very strong staying power with this script.
Solid.
Next up, we've got Donald Pleasance as Dr. Samuel Loomis. Now, Pleasance is best known as Colin Blythe in 1963's The Great Escape, Sen 5241 in 1971's THX 1138, Clarence Doc Tyden in 1971's Wake the Fright, Judge Lawrence Wargrave in 1989's 10 Little Indians film adaptation, the President of the United States in 1981's Escape from New York, Lucas Duradian in 1975's Escape to Witch Mountain, and James Bond villain Ernst Stavro Blofeld in 1967's You Only Live Twice. And he was also a one-time host on Saturday Night Live. He has been nominated for 1 Primetime Emmy Award, 2 Saturn Awards, 4 Tony Awards, and was the winner of 1 BAFTA. In 1994, he was appointed an Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire by Queen Elizabeth II, and he has reprised the role of Dr. Samuel Loomis in 4 of the films in the Halloween franchise. Unfortunately, he would pass away in February of 1995 due to complications of heart failure following heart valve replacement surgery. I love this casting only because Pleasance hams it up so much that it's believable.
Like, he's rightfully outraged and concerned about what's going on, and he's the only one who is.
Because he's the only one who knows how deep this evil well goes. I did not mean to rhyme there, but I did.
It happens. That's Halloween, baby. Anyone who has seen this movie now and understands Michael Myers would react Probably in a similar way, probably less composed than him if they knew that he was in their town killing people. He's the only one who's concerned about this, but also he's a little oblivious sometimes.
I think so. I want to say his obliviousness comes from how focused he is. Like, he's so focused on this one thing that he's missing all the little things around him.
Yeah, tunnel vision.
Thank you. Exactly. Like the scene where he's looking around waiting for the cop to go check out the broken into hardware store, and Michael literally drives past him.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly, mind you. Completely misses it. Even though he's looking around, completely misses it because he's not looking for this car, he's looking for Michael.
Drive slow, homie.
Next up, we have Jamie Lee Curtis. That's right, folks. 2 choirs for Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Now, Curtis is best known as one of the best scream queens to ever take up the moniker and one of the first final girls in all of horror film history. Her acting roles include, but are not limited to, playing Elizabeth Solly in 1980's The Fog, Kim Hammond in 1980's Prom Night, Elena Maxwell in 1980's Terror Train, Ophelia in 1983's Trading Places, Megan Turner in 1990's Blue Steel, Shelley Devoto in 1991's My Girl, a role she would reprise in the 1994 sequel, My Girl 2.
My Girl with a Vengeance.
Helen Tasker in 1994's True Lies, Kelly Foster in 1999's Virus, Tess/Anna Coleman in 2003's Freaky Friday remake, a role she is reprising for the upcoming 2025 release, Freakier Friday, Linda Drysdale Thromby in 2019's Knives Out, and Deirdre in 2022's Everything Everywhere All at Once. She has reprised the role as Laurie Strode in 6 of the films in the Halloween franchise. But Steve, that's just film.
What?
I'm telling you, she's also played the role of Joan Day on Fox's New Girl, Kathy Munch on Fox's Scream Queens, Donna Brizzato on Hulu's The Bear, and has even hosted Saturday Night Live twice.
I love her on The Bear so much.
So much. But you know what else I love, Steve?
What?
How many awards this woman has won. Because when it comes to awards, she's been nominated for 3 BAFTAs, winning 1, 2 Primetime Emmy Awards, winning 1, 8 Golden Globes, winning 2, 1 Grammy, 3 SAG Awards, winning 2, 6 Saturn Awards, winning 2, 4 Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, winning 1, and a winner of her sole Academy Award nomination. She has also been awarded the Golden Lion Honorary Award at the 78th Venice International Film Festival, the Career Achievement Award from the AARP Movies for Grown-Ups Awards in 2023, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1998, and in 2024, she was given Disney Legend status from the Walt Disney Company. Jamie Lee Curtis, what a legend.
Legend.
This woman can play any role and knocks it out the park every single time.
Absolutely. She is brilliant. She is a chameleon. And yeah, that is in full force here. And you know what is wild to see in the opening credits of a movie? Introducing Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's right. This was her first major motion picture role. She, I think, was on like a TV show prior to this. I couldn't tell you what it was. I don't care what it was, because if you ask me, this is where it all started.
Fair.
What's so good about Jamie Lee Curtis in this role is, like you said, the chameleon aspect. There's so many different levels of where she's terrified in this. There's outright sobbing. There's the frozen terrified. There's screaming at the top of your lungs. Then you have her like being super playful with Tommy, like on the couch, or like talking with her friends and like laughing or like getting embarrassed because, oh my God, you told that guy I like him. Call him back and tell him, no, I don't. There's just such a realism to this character in these moments, especially like the normal moments. The terrifying moments is a whole different story. But when she's acting like a normal high school girl, she's nailing it every time.
And believably the smartest person in the movie.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Next up, we have Nick Castle as The Shape, also known as Michael Myers in The Mask. Castle is best known as a co-writer on 1981's Escape from New York and 2007's August Rush. He was also the director for such films as 1984's The Last Starfighter, 1993's Dennis the Menace, 1995's Major Payne, and the director who was replaced by Steven Spielberg for 1991's Hook.
Episode 61.
He also has held such roles as the Beach Ball Alien in 1974's Dark Star, as well as reprising his role as the masked Michael Myers in 2 sequels to Halloween, 1981's Halloween 2 and 2021's Halloween Kills.
That's quite a gap there.
Well, he got busy doing other things. Like he just decided I'm going to start directing and I want to write a bit more. And what's interesting here is so he's credited as the Shape, which is what Michael Myers is known throughout this entire film. He's not credited as Michael Myers. And I kind of think there's an underlying aspect in the writing to that, in that this is no longer Michael Myers. This is just the Shape. Michael Myers is dead. Whatever has taken over him, this evil, that's what he is.
I buy it.
But we also talked about Michael's mannerisms and how they came alive. Well, you got to make sure you have the right performer to make sure that these mannerisms are properly on screen. The way he just looks around in that mask, the way he stands, his body language when he walks or is carrying a knife or stabbing at someone or even like reaching for someone's face. It's so vicious and direct. It's vicious because of how direct it is.
And this is a sentence I've never said before, but he's got scary hands. Those hands are terrifying.
He got some meat puppies.
Yeah. They're busting through glass, they're choking people, they're holding knives, steering wheels.
He's choking everybody out.
Straight choking them. Choke City. Choker 2, Folie à Deux.
And the Michael Myers character is, obviously, we talked about, is such an interesting character in horror franchise because of the simplicity behind it. And the simplicity kind of comes out while he's killing people. He's not doing anything creative. He's just doing like, okay, when's the right moment to strike? Mike Myers, as we said, is a predator stalking his prey. He doesn't do this for fun. He's just waiting for this is the right moment to strike where I'm going to be able to kill them.
Yeah, he's just got such a vicious presence just from standing there. Standing, staring, stabbing.
And folks, that's the members of our cast and crew!
Hey, it's the cast and crew!
Next up, the generically named How It's Made.
Hey, how'd they make that?
As always, folks, with the generically named How It's Made, I have gone through and compiled an entire production history of this film to the best of my ability. And I have compiled all of this into a Word document, which I have presented to Steve right now. Now, Steve is opening this, and he will read it out loud to us for the first time, giving us his takes as we go. So, Steve, whenever you're ready, take it away.
After viewing Carpenter's 1976 film Assault on Precinct 13 at the Milan Film Festival, independent producer Irwin Yablans and financier Mustafa Akkad sought out John Carpenter to direct a film about a psychotic killer that stalked babysitters. Carpenter would agree, but only if he had complete creative control. Wow, early in his career, and he got that. Good for him. He would be paid a total of $10,000 for writing, directing, and scoring the film, with a 10% of the film's profits. Once he had officially signed on, Carpenter and his then-girlfriend, Deborah Hill, began drafting the story that would become Halloween. The screenplay would take 10 days to complete, Jesus, with Hill writing most of the female characters' dialogue, and Carpenter writing the speeches on Michael Myers' soullessness delivered by Loomis. The script was written with the idea behind the Celtic holiday Samhain, where it was the night where all souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living. Interesting. The people running around the insane asylum are, kind of have like a soul quality to them, and one got out.
And what's he doing?
He's wreaking havoc on the living.
You're damn right he is.
The idea for the backstory of Myers came from the haunted house folklore in small towns, where every town has a house with some kind of story that somebody was killed or went crazy in. Carpenter would draw on the evil that Myers embodied from a visit he had taken during college to a psychiatric institution in Kentucky. There, he visited a ward with psychology classmates where among the patients was an adolescent boy who possessed a blank, schizophrenic stare. Not a great understanding of mental health in the 70s. Originally, the role of Loomis was intended for Peter Cushing before he rejected it due to the low salary. Peter Cushing, that's Grand Moff Tarkin, right?
You're damn right it is.
Thought so. Christopher Lee was also approached but turned down the role. Pleasance would agree because his daughter had enjoyed Carpenter's score on Assault on Precinct 13. According to Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't the first choice for Laurie due to how new to the industry she was. Originally, Carpenter wanted to cast Anne Lockhart as Laurie, however, she had other commitments and declined. I do not know who Anne Lockhart is, and this is probably why. You chose poorly. Nick Castle would be brought on due to his connection to Carpenter, as they had become friends when they both attended the University of Southern California. The unmasked Myers was played by Tony Moran and was paid $250 for his role. Yikes. So just that one scene where they take his mask off?
Just the one.
Wow. Like, you'd think that would be like, Castle would like want to be that above anything else. Like, actually show the moneymaker for 2 seconds. Wild. Also, $250 for a role in a major motion picture. Outrageous.
This was 1978.
Still. Seems a little low. Like Moran, most of the performers would receive little compensation. Pleasance was paid the highest amount at $20,000, Curtis would receive $8,000, and Castle earned $25 a day. Yikes. These people really loved what they do to make something for that little money. Prior to filming beginning, Akkad was worried given the low budget and Carpenter's limited experience. However, he has said that he was completely sold on Carpenter when he told him the story verbally and in a suspenseful way, almost frame by frame. Filming would take place over 20 days in May of 1978. Due to the low budget, wardrobe and props were often crafted from items on hand or could be purchased inexpensively. Tommy Lee Wallace would serve as the production designer, art director, location scout, and co-editor. Yo, that is a lot of hats. Any one of those is a full-time job. How do you do 4 at the same time?
That's Hollywood on a budget, baby.
Damn. Wallace would create the iconic Michael Myers mask from a Captain Kirk mask. The mask was purchased from a costume shop for $1.98. Wallace would widen the eye holes and spray paint the flesh a bluish white. The idea was to make Myers humorless, a pale visage that could resemble a human or not. Most of the performers would end up wearing their own clothes, with Curtis' wardrobe being purchased at JCPenney for around $100. Cast members would often assist during shooting with moving equipment, cameras, and helping setups. That would never happen even on a micro-budget film today. That is wild. Like having all that expensive equipment handled by actors? Heck no. You're giving heart attacks across the board if you're doing that. Filming locations included South Pasadena, California, Garfield Elementary School in Alhambra, California, and the cemetery at Sierra Madre, California. Local families would assist in filming by having their children dress up in Halloween costumes for the trick-or-treat scenes. Aw, that's adorbs.
Right? I think that's a fun little way of making the town a part of a film.
Yeah, that is wholesome as heck.
Plus, like, the kids are being told, like, oh, in the middle of May, hey kids, go put on some Halloween costumes, we're gonna go trick-or-treating. Dude, if you were 5 years old and told that, you'd lose your mind.
Absolutely. Second Halloween, let's go. The film would be shot out of sequence, as films often are. As a way to alert the performers of how scared their characters were, Carpenter created and instituted a fear meter, which would include a range from 1 to 10 on how terrified a character in the scene should be. Smart. Curtis would develop different facial expressions and scream volumes for each level on the meter. Castle would receive minimal direction from Carpenter, with one note being, your motivation is to walk from one set marker to another and not act. Solid. It worked.
It comes across so well on the screen because, like I said during cast and crew, Michael Myers is very straightforward and simple.
Yeah. Nothing behind those eyes but stabby. Halloween would premiere on October 24th, 1978 in downtown Kansas City, Missouri at the AMC Empire Theater. It would go on to gross $1.27 million across 198 theaters in its opening week, bringing in $70 million against a $300,000 budget. Wow, and John Carpenter got 10% of that? That is a nice chunk of change in his pocket. Good for you, John. This puts it as the third most successful film in the slasher genre, behind 1996's Scream and 1997's Scream 2. The film would go on to spawn the Halloween franchise, which includes 11 films, 2 Rob Zombie remakes, boo, a novel tie-in, video games, comic books, and action figures. It is also known as being the blueprint for other successful horror franchises such as Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the Scream franchise. It would also popularize the final girl trope in film, along with killing off characters who are substance abusers or sexually promiscuous. It also took the 68th spot on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills list. It would go on to be nominated for 1 Saturn Award. And in 2006, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. As they should. What took them so long?
I feel like horror films, they've always gotten such a bad rap in Hollywood, and people just think it's all the same schlock. And let's be fair, a lot of horror films, especially from this era, have been schlock. Like horror films nowadays, they've kind of upped the game, but now most of them are trying to be way too pretentious than they need to be. So, we're probably gonna see a balance shift again to more like what Terrifier is doing, which is, oh, I'm just here to murder people.
Terrifier franchise is blowing up, side note, and I had never heard of it before the third one came out. Thus concludes the generically named How It's Made. Oh, that's how they made it.
Now, folks, before we get to our ad break and next segment, I just want to bring something up. Both Steve and I have not seen this film before. However, I have seen another Halloween film. Now, for those who know the franchise, you may think I'm talking about Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. That is unfortunately incorrect. I have seen the first Rob Zombie remake.
Oh.
Yeah, I recently rewatched it, and I would just like to quickly give my thoughts. It starts off with a very cool idea, which is, why don't we give more of a background to Michael? And why don't we show how he starts off as kind of like this happy kid who's just really messed up in the head to the absolute catatonic murderer that he is. They spend like a good first half hour, 45 minutes of the film just showing us that. And it does add a little something more to the character that I don't feel is obviously missing from these films, but it's just kind of cool to see that. However, it then quickly loses the whole purpose of Halloween, which is not, oh, stabby stabby, blood and gore, and ha ha ha. No, Rob Zombie just does what he does, which is, oh, cool, here's a horror movie I like, but what if we made it a lot more bloodier? And that's it. It's just gore porn at the end of the day. The plot becomes very, very weak. The performances, other than the guy that got to play Loomis, was awful. If you are looking to ever watch it, go for it. If you really feel the need, I do not feel any desire to ever watch that film again. That was the first Halloween film I've ever seen.
Wow. So the big step up here. That's what we're saying.
Oh, incredibly high step up. But we'll get to that just as soon as we have a word from our sponsors.
Commercial money.
Folks, you've been asking about it for years. You come up to me, you come up to Steve, and you say, guys, where's the merch for the pod?
I know, right? Just leave us alone for 2 seconds, people.
That's right, Steve. We've been way too busy doing all types of other things, such as jumping jacks and putting together puzzles and
documents.
Tons of documents. But who has time to sit there and truly set up a merch store?
Not me, I'll tell you what. If only there was an easier way for us to open up a merch store to sell our merch to people.
Well, you know what, Steve? There is. Live right now, we have the That Sounds Terrible Go On podcast store, and it's all available on redbubble.com. Go to redbubble.com, look up our store. It is TSTGo-pod. Again, TSTGo-pod. You'll see fun little things that we say on here. You'll find stickers, shirts, hats.
That's some high quality merchandise if I ever did see it right there.
So that's right, folks. Hit up redbubble.com, search TSTGo-pod, all one word, and we'll see you there.
Capitalism, baby!
Welcome back, folks.
Hey, you made it.
Steve, it's been a very busy week for me. All right, I think that I just want to kick my feet back, pound back a few beers, maybe go babysit a child, just see what happens.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you could use a good break.
Well, what better break than our breakdown?
Oh, don't do this to me.
That's right, folks. It's the breakdown. We're going to be going through this entire film, scene by scene, giving our takes as we go. Now, are we going to be able to make a comment on every little thing that happens?
Absolutely. We got the screenplay open. We're going line by line.
You're definitely the only one doing lines here if you think that's what we're doing here today, Steve.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Steve, baby, I know you up right now, but you better be coming down real quick because we do not have time to accomplish this. But, folks, if there is something that we missed out on talking about that you wish that we had touched on, please leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page. Steve, we got a trick the treat treat the trick, and I gotta return this mask costume without blood on it by 5 o'clock, so I think we should get started.
Let's hollow this ween.
All right, kicking off this breakdown in 3, 2. On the night of Halloween, 1963, in the suburban Illinois town of Haddonfield, 6-year-old Michael Myers, played by Will Sandon, brutally stabs his teenage sister Judith, played by Sandy Johnson, to death with a chef's knife. Let's talk these opening credits. What an opening!
It is unsettling.
You start off with that iconic and creepy theme, and then we see a lit jack-o'-lantern against a black background as we slowly zoom into it while the credits are just fading in and out next to the jack-o'-lantern. The entire time, the theme is just building more and more until we've completely zoomed in on the jack-o'-lantern's eye and we fade to black to kick off our story. It's got a very everyone gather around the campfire and let me tell you a scary story vibe.
Ooh, yeah. You zoom in and zoom in and zoom in on that jack-o'-lantern until you're right in its eye hole. It's taking up a third of the screen and it's inescapable. It creeps up on you just like Michael Myers.
And then we have the opening scene, which all happens through the first-person perspective of a 6-year-old Michael Myers. And I really love this because it's just so ominous. You don't realize that this is a 6-year-old until we cut to the outside of the house, and he's just standing there in front of his parents holding a bloody knife.
Yeah, like at first you don't know what to think with this. Is this just some fancy camera work? And then we see the couple kissing. Oh, so we're just focusing on them. These are the heroes of the story. But it just keeps going, and it's like hiding in the bushes. It's creeping around to the side of the house, any open window that they can creep through.
You say that these might be the heroes of the story. I feel like that's very quickly disproven because Judith and her boyfriend go upstairs to have sex, right? How long are they up there for?
Not long.
I would say at most 2 minutes. I'm going to tell you right now, this boyfriend is no hero. Judith, if you can hear me, you can do better.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Like, what's he going to do with the other minute and a half?
If anybody listening has been personally wronged by Steve and his penis, please reach out to us on our Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook page.
Oh no, don't invite that evil in.
I also really love the use of the mask here. So to me, it felt like when he has the mask on, Michael is super focused. It's also a kind of clever way of covering up some of the gore when Judith is getting stabbed. So this way you can actually save a bit more money on production.
Yeah, one thing I definitely noticed about this was the lack of gore. I'm rewatching this opening sequence again, and this camera is way too high to be a child's perspective.
That's the only thing about it I don't like, is because once you learn it's a kid and you go to rewatch it, it just feels a bit off. And I don't think there's any symbolism in that. I think it was just, hey, it's the 70s. I cannot squat and walk with this very heavy piece of equipment. So I'm just going to stand and y'all can deal with it.
Yeah, pretty much. Low budget filmmaking.
15 years later, Michael's psychiatrist, Dr. Samuel Loomis, drives with Nurse Marion Chambers, played by Nancy Stevens, to the sanitarium where Michael is incarcerated in order to escort him to a court hearing. After Loomis exits their car to unlock the main gate, Michael jumps on the roof and attacks Marion. She runs from the vehicle, allowing Michael to steal the car and drive away. There are some very good things revealed here. First off, Michael's revealed to have not spoken in 15 years, implying he hasn't said anything since killing his sister. It's also implied that Michael somehow released a few inmates onto the grounds so he could blend in with them at night, just so that he can steal the car and make his escape. Because keep in mind, he probably could have killed this nurse if he stuck around, but he chose not to waste his time, and he just jumped right into the car once she runs out. So to me, it kind of implies he wasn't trying to hurt her, but just scare her away. And now I feel like we're establishing a type of intelligence from Michael Myers.
Definitely. He knows how to get her out of the car and immediately jumps in and takes his opportunity to drive off. If he had waited, 5 seconds, he probably would have been caught.
At some point, someone brings up a very good take, which is, how did he learn to drive? Now, keep in mind, this is the late 70s.
Mm-hmm.
That car is a stick shift. That is not an automatic car.
True.
So, like an automatic car, okay, I think you got some wiggle room, but you're telling me that Michael while in a mental asylum, learned how to drive stick.
He's just that good, Corey.
He's just that evil, Steve.
Come on, it's Evil 101. You can drive a stick? Ooh, shivers. Also, shout out to this movie for cutting to what was then the present day and not using the caption present day. They use a very specific date, October 30th, 1978, which I assume will carry on for the rest of the franchise and just be one very easy to understand timeline.
Oh, yeah, no, the timeline's very, very easy to understand here if you're willing to go cross-eyed.
Which I am.
Oh, that's good, because we'll get there. Something else I love about this opening, I love the visuals that they have. It just reads like a traditional scary story. The thunderstorm at night, like it's so disgustingly dark around them, and they're driving up to an insane asylum, only for one of the inmates to attack them and then escape into the night. You can't sit there and tell me that that wasn't in somebody's campfire horror story at some point.
Absolutely. Escaped mental patient? Come on. People love to see it.
The next day in Haddonfield, it's Halloween, and teenager Laurie Strode is making her way to school. She meets up with Tommy Doyle, played by Brian Andrews, a boy who Laurie plans to babysit that night. On the way, Laurie runs an errand for her dad and drops off a key at the old Myers house, which is now abandoned and dilapidated, despite Tommy's warnings of the house being haunted. One hell of an establishing shot here on Haddonfield. That slow pan of the camera as it still slowly zooms toward Laurie exiting her house. It just sets the tone so well.
And the shot of her walking away with Michael just watching her on the sidewalk, that shot goes on for so long. Oh my god, it's uncomfortable, which it should be.
The music here completely undercuts the normal small town vibes that are present in this shot. Like, you've got a girl walking to school, she starts walking with a kid that she's babysitting, she's like playing with him, joking, but then the music cuts out as she gets to the Myers house. Kind of as a way of like telling us as the audience, like, yo, pay attention.
Also, just shout out to her outfit here. Between the knee socks and the cardigan, it is 100% working.
Down, boy.
Nah. It's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Also, the scene here with Tommy throwing out the quick explanation of like, what people say about this house. It's to set up that this is the haunted house that is present in every single small town. That's the house that school kids tell scary stories about. The ones where they'll dare each other, like, I dare you to go up there and like punch the door. Or, we cross the street because we don't want to cross that house. There's something bad about it. It's really, really cool the way that they dive in to the whole, like, we're telling like a local town folklore scary story.
Definitely.
During school, Laurie sees Michael, now donning a white mask and a dark blue jumpsuit, staring at her from across the street outside the school window. After school lets out, Tommy is bullied by some kids in his class when they tell him repeatedly that the boogeyman is going to get him. The bullies trip Tommy, causing him to fall on and smash his pumpkin. Michael watches him from a distance and begins to follow him in a car. Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis discovers Michael's hospital gown near an abandoned truck, where the driver's lifeless body has been tossed into the bushes. So in the classroom, they're talking about the power of fate.
Fate never changes.
And that's kind of what the film is implying here. Nothing can stop Michael Myers. You can't stop him from returning home. And you can't stop him from going on this path of destruction. He's already beaten the odds, and he's going to continue doing so because he's destined to do this.
Yeah, you're in Haddonfield. Your fate is stab.
I think that showing Michael is stalking Laurie is pretty important because it's showing his obsession in a very simple manner. Wherever she is, there he is watching her. No expression, no emotion, just pure obsession.
And no one notices but Laurie.
If only people had listened to the woman.
And how?
So quick question for you.
Yeah.
Can you think of why Tommy might have been spared here? Like, Michael could have easily run him over with the car or pulled over, got out, and just killed him right there. But he doesn't.
That's a good question.
Like, he's clearly stalking him because he saw him walking with Laurie. So he thinks that, if I follow him, he'll bring me to Laurie.
Maybe that's just Michael Myers' code of ethics. No kids.
I think it's actually because of Tommy's innocence. It's the same innocence that was lost the night Michael stabbed his sister to death. He sees himself in Tommy.
I can buy that.
Good, it's on sale. Also, I think we could have completely cut the scene where Loomis finds the abandoned truck, but completely misses the body. Is the point to show us that Michael can kill? Because we already know that. I just feel like it was kind of unnecessary.
For me, the point of this was to show where his jumpsuit came from. Because he's got the abandoned asylum clothes strewn about the truck. The truck says Phelps Garage.
Okay, fine. I guess we have to explain the costume change. Fine. Movie and its non-plot holes.
Yeah, it's fine.
After school, Lori walks home with her two friends, Annie Brackett, played by Nancy Keys, a rebellious and sarcastic teenager and the sheriff's daughter, and Linda Vanderklok, played by PJ Souls, a blonde cheerleader. They chat about their plans for tonight, and Lori sees Michael inside the government car cruising by the girls, and she catches him watching her from behind a row of hedges. Annie is skeptical of Lori's claims and teases her for babysitting so much and not having a date, claiming she is hallucinating guys due to her loneliness. Soon after, Lori, Linda, and Annie reach their own homes as evening begins to fall. It's another unsettling scene as Michael drives past them. I really thought that as they were walking away, he was going to appear to be like watching them from a distance. But he does something even creepier by watching for them behind bushes, but directly in front of them.
Yeah, it's so jarring to see. You're walking down the street and there's this large shape watching you. And miraculously, only Lori can see him.
We also get a quick little fake setup where, as Lori begins heading into her house, she hears the sounds of kids yelping, but when she goes to investigate, it's just some good old-fashioned trick and or treaters.
True. Yeah, we gotta have a mislead in the slasher movie.
There's a ton of misleads throughout this film, in all honesty, and it's just done as a way of just continually building up the suspense. But I think the end rule is that if you don't see Michael on screen, nothing bad is going to happen. But the film makes you forget about that as you're watching it.
True. Also him just hiding behind the blowing laundry out in the yard, and then he's not there, and then the phone call. How do you get to a phone so fast? It's the 1970s.
Where'd he get the quarter?
Maybe there was some change in the jumpsuit.
I think we could all use a little bit of change.
Thank you, Smash Mouth.
What did you think of Annie and Linda?
Linda says totally a lot.
Totally.
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 I like Annie. Think she's got an edge to her. You know, she's having a fun time razzing on her friends, but Linda, she kind of got on my nerves a bit.
Totally.
Yeah, I was very much so waiting for Linda to die. I loved Annie. Annie is totally the comedian of the group. At the scene where she's just busting Lori's chops, like, oh, look, another man you scared away.
Yeah.
Later that night, Annie and Lori drive together to their babysitting jobs. While driving, the girls come across Annie's father, Sheriff Brackett, played by Charles Cyphers, as he's investigating a break-in at the local hardware store. Dr. Loomis arrives in Haddonfield and discovers Michael has stolen his sister Judith's grave from the cemetery. He also joins forces with Sheriff Brackett, and they both begin searching the town for Michael. Annie and Lori arrive at the neighborhood. Lori is babysitting Tommy, and Annie is babysitting a girl named Lindsay Wallace, played by Kyle Richards. Across the street, Michael has followed the girls and proceeds to stalk Annie, watching her through the windows. What's so unsettling about the gravestone isn't that it's missing. It's that it wasn't dug out. It was just lifted out the ground clean. There's no dig marks around it. The ground is perfectly, undisturbed. So Jason just walked up and deadlifted this sumbitch and carried it out.
Yeah, that is stupid brute strength right there. So Annie and Lori driving around, and by the way, Annie's got a super nice car. That thing is beautiful. But they're driving around smoking a joint, and they immediately pull up to say hi to her cop dad. And they just wave their hands in front of them for 2 seconds to be like, oh, make the smell go away. There's no way he didn't smell that. But he's got no reaction to it. So in the hardware store break-in, they say all that was taken was a Halloween mask, some rope, and some knives. Yeah? What the was the rope for? We never see the rope used.
Oh my god, you're right, actually. That's a good question.
That occurred to me today as I was driving home.
Huh. Maybe his plan was to tie Lori up and not kill her or something. I don't know, but you're right though. Like we never see the rope the entire film.
It's a failure of Chekhov's rope.
I also like that you brought up that clearly Michael was the one who broke into the hardware store. And again, kind of further showing his intelligence. He may be the smartest slasher on screen that I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's fair. He always knows where to sneak in. He always knows who to hide from, who not to hide from, when to strike, where. Dude's really good at what he does.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
The night progresses as Loomis and Brackett search around Michael's desolated home and discover a mutilated dog. There, Loomis shares with Brackett why he believes Michael is so evil. Meanwhile, Tommy asks Laurie about the boogeyman. So the scene in Michael's old home serves a few purposes. When they find the dead, mutilated dog, that's to show just how evil Michael is, and it's reinforced by Loomis's not even being remotely surprised that Michael could do this. Like, he even says the line, maybe he got hungry. Side note, I want to give a shout out to Carpenter for choosing to not show us a dead, mutilated dog on screen in this scene. That was a great choice. We didn't need to see it.
Oh, we sure did not. Yeah, no, it's already bad enough that the dog has to die.
Yeah, we don't need to see any part of it. I don't like that. Also, this scene shows us that Loomis is carrying a revolver, and we also get more details on what Loomis's connection is to Michael and why he truly believes Michael is purely evil. Like, he explains to the sheriff,
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up.
Could you imagine 7 years as a therapist trying to get through to somebody who won't speak, won't show remorse over the horrible thing they did? 7 years of that. And it finally clicked in his head. He's like, you can't save this child. And I think that's what the commentary is here with that. You can't save Michael Myers. Michael Myers is just evil. That's it.
Yeah, he is an unstoppable force of pure malice.
A special shout out to Laurie and Tommy's conversation about the boogeyman. It's very, very sweet and innocent. And she's just such a great babysitter. Honestly, like, she's already planning ahead, like, oh, I bring him a pumpkin so we can do jack-o'-lanterns. And she's like looking at his comics. It's like, what are these? Like, she's actually engaging with him instead of just doing what Annie's doing, which is like sitting him in front of the TV and just going like, yeah, watch this and leave me the hell alone. Like, she clearly likes kids, and she clearly is also having fun while interacting with him.
Yeah, she is the antithesis of Michael Myers. She is purely good and wholesome and nurturing.
And she
I don't think she does.
Not in this one. Probably in a future one. We'll get there.
One would hope.
Annie gets locked in the laundry room when trying to wash a shirt she spilled butter on, with Michael watching her through the window. Annie gets a call from her boyfriend Paul, voiced by John Carpenter, and decides to go pick Paul up. Annie then takes Lindsay over to Tommy's house with Laurie and returns to the Wallace house. When she gets in the car to leave, Michael ambushes Annie from the back seat and strangles her before slitting her throat with a chef knife. Back at the Doyle house, Tommy witnesses Michael carrying Annie's corpse into the Wallace residence. He tries to tell Laurie, but she dismisses it and sends Tommy and Lindsay to bed. Now, I know I just gave props for Carpenter not showing us a dead dog on screen, and I would like to rescind those props immediately because watching the Wallace's dog's legs go limp while Michael is clearly strangling him made me incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah, fair. This poor dog. He just wanted to protect his home, wanted to be a good boy, get some Treatos, ward off intruders, and oof.
I just don't like when people kill animals, like pets, on screen in a horror film. I don't like it. It really just rubs me the wrong way. And I get that that's the point, but it doesn't mean I have to like it.
Yeah, there's some things that we can know happened without seeing them. Annie and Lindsay are watching The Thing on TV. When I was originally watching this, I thought they were watching specifically John Carpenter's The Thing, because I don't know the difference, only to find out that that movie came out after this one. So he was just kind of laying some breadcrumbs there.
Kind of yes, kind of no. So The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, is actually based off of an old sci-fi film called The Thing from Another World.
Okay.
And I'm fairly confident that that's what that title card is from. It starts off with the thing, and then it kind of just probably says underneath it from another world.
Gotcha.
I have yet to see it. One day I will.
Isn't the thing also based on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or did I just make that up?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that one is based on Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I could be wrong. Anyone listening, if you know the answer, please leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page.
Please do.
I love how we get a very brief glimpse of Michael watching Annie in the laundry room through the window that she's about to get stuck in. Just build that suspense. Just keep us guessing. When is he going to strike? There's so many false flags in this death scene. So before Annie crawls out and gets trapped, she's pulling at the door. Behind her, there's Michael. Then when Lindsay goes to get her out of the window, when Paul calls, we hear Annie scream, "Ow!" in the distance to make us think that Michael's getting her, right? Except she's just saying that because she's stuck in the window. Then she talks to Paul on the phone, where she's essentially saying she's going to pick him up so they can bang, and Michael is standing outside the open door behind her. Then she walks Lindsay over, and he's hiding behind her car watching them. Finally, she gets to her car. Oh man, I forgot my keys, because she's pulling on the car lock and it won't open. Goes back inside, gets her keys, comes out. Notice how she was able to open the car door without having to unlock it this time. Keep in mind, folks, this is the 70s. Those little buttons did not exist.
No, they did not. Yeah, that's a good point.
So at that point, we know once she gets in that car, she's dead. And you can see like there's the fog on the window that she's like wiping and everything. And you're like, she's like, what's this? I've said it before and I'll say it again about Michael Myers. It is like watching a hunter stalk its prey.
Absolutely. She is a poor little gazelle, and she's about to get got.
And how?
And of course, when she's locked in the laundry room, there's immediately an excuse for her to strip, kind of adding to the whole sin punishment thing. But at the same time, and this clearly is not the filmmaker's intentions, but kind of expanding on the whole sin punishment thing, when they show you her stripping and they linger on her for a bit, even though she's facing away from the camera, that's the audience sinning. And then they get punished for watching it.
By not seeing full bush?
By seeing a grisly murder.
Oh, right. The murder. See, I was so distracted by the other murder that I didn't think about. You're the pervert. Loomis and Brackett keeping an eye. No, that's a good take on this. Again, I feel that even though we know the curtains are just blue for the majority of this film, it's okay to still find symbolism in that because it works. Loomis and Brackett begin keeping an eye on Michael's old house. Meanwhile, Linda and her boyfriend Bob, played by John Michael Graham, arrive at the dark and empty Wallace house planning on surprising and scaring Annie. Upon entrance, they find Annie and Lindsay not there, so they go upstairs and have sex. Afterwards, Bob goes downstairs to get a beer and is suddenly grabbed by Michael and stabbed to the chest with a knife, pinning him to the wall. Michael then dons a sheet and Bob's glasses and goes upstairs to the bedroom with Linda. Linda, believing that it's Bob, jokes with him for a second, then gets irritated. She tries to call Lori, and just as Lori picks up, Michael wraps the phone cord around Linda's neck and strangles her to death. Lori hears Linda's gasps and squeals and, feeling unsettled, makes sure the kids are asleep and goes over to the Wallace residence to investigate. Loomis's speeches about Michael are just another very unsettling thing throughout this film, sprinkled about. Just the way he's so confident in the evil that resides within Michael. Haunting.
Yeah, especially hearing that from a psychiatrist, one of those.
Did you also notice how Bob just leaves his van door wide open when he's carrying Linda inside the house?
I did not notice that.
Yeah, just leaves that passenger side door wide open.
God damn it, Bob.
Bob, I understand you're in suburbia, but not locking your front door is one thing. But leaving your car door open? Come on. Come on, Bob.
Come on! Also, we were given the couple in the opening scene for being upstairs for I timed it 2.5 minutes. Bob and Linda here last maybe 10 seconds.
And she's acting like it's the best thing that's ever happened to her.
Right.
I swear to God, it's really true. Men in the 70s could not find the clip.
Nope, absolutely not.
On one hand, though, I want to give credit. they're not showing a gratuitous amount of sex at the very least, which I feel is something very much so overdone in horror films after this one. People are like, oh, people liked it because of the sex. There is no sex in this film. It's there, but like you can't really call this sex. This is like a step above like naked spooning, okay? That's all this sex is.
It was basically a handshake. Okay, and I timed this one out. It was just under 30 seconds.
Sometimes that's all a man needs.
Yeah, there's someone else involved there too.
Yeah, me, myself, and I.
Oh, you.
One other thing about the sex scene, and then I really want to just move on from this. Did you notice the lit jack-o'-lantern next to the bed?
I did. Who's that for? It's an empty house.
That's what I'm asking here. I don't think there's any chance in hell any teenager about to bone goes, no, wait, we need the ambiance. So now I'm kind of thinking about it. Do you think Michael lit it?
I don't think so. I'm gonna say this was the parents doing, Tommy's parents.
No, it's Lindsay's bedroom.
I can't keep these kids straight. Yeah, that's right. Lori's babysitting Tommy. Lindsay's parents. That's who I think did it.
That's very irresponsible of them to light a jack-o'-lantern and then just leave for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I mean, it's also irresponsible for them to leave their kid with Annie.
Hey, she survived, so her parents made the right choice if we really want to go at this.
Yeah, that choice being leave the kids with a different babysitter.
Let's talk about Bob's death. Michael wasting no time on this one. It's almost like he's not doing it for pleasure, but just because he feels this drive that he has to. And then he has this unsettling way. He just stares at Bob's pinned body to the door, like a child admiring the finger painting they just made.
Yeah. But also, how is this one knife holding his entire body weight up, pinning him against the door?
Oh, actually, I can explain this. So I did a bunch of research, right? And it turns out that this is a movie.
No. The whole time?
The whole time, beginning to end, credits and all. It's a movie.
Yeah, no, that's the only explanation.
We do get a little bit of humor in this film, finally, with Michael grabs a sheet, cuts holes into it, puts it on, and then takes his recent victim's glasses, puts them on, and it just travels up there and just stares at her. Guys, it's me, Bob! Bob, you grew like 5 inches. What happened, man?
Classic Bob move.
It's a much needed silly moment in the film. I also just want to say, I think that Linda's death, it's the only one that made me just go like, it's okay. It was over pretty quickly, but it didn't really like make me cheer or think like, oh, this is a really cool death. I'm like, this is okay.
Yeah, getting strangled by the phone cord on the phone call. First it's like, oh, she's making sex sounds, ha ha ha. But, on the bright side, silver linings here, Linda's dead.
Thank God for that.
Totally.
While still waiting outside of Michael's house, Loomis noticed Michael's car parked on the same street. He rushes over in a panic, realizing that Michael is indeed somewhere on the street. Lori enters through the patio doors and searches the house, finding it dark and empty. She goes into an upstairs bedroom where she finds Judith Meyer's headstone on the bed over Annie's lifeless body, along with Linda and Bob's mutilated corpses. Horrified, Lori stumbles out into the hallway in tears when Michael lunges out of the darkness and stabs her in the shoulder. Lori falls off the balcony of the stairs, hurting her leg. That short walk, just across the street for Lori, is so drawn out, and it is a great tension builder.
The way that he just lures her in with the light going on and off, that boy is smart. And then his murder tableau.
No, you're right. The way he set up this whole entire room, it's a ritual for him at this point.
Yeah, that's I literally wrote a note, is there some ritual to this, or is he just killing as he pleases? It seemed very intentional.
I think at this point it became very apparent that while Michael is purely evil, he also has this obsession over his sister's death and trying to recreate that almost. Like he's trying to capture that moment again. Because it was incredibly life-changing for him.
True.
So, I mean, I guess Michael Myers is a very complicated villain. I think at the beginning we tried really hard to like simplify him, but like the more and more we get into this, the more and more I'm thinking there's so many layers to this guy, and I love it.
Yeah. And also, like, I haven't brought this up yet, but the cinematography in this movie works so well. As soon as night falls, the movie just becomes so very dark, lighting-wise. And it just, all these shadows everywhere, and any one of them could have Michael lurking in them.
Oh yeah, like when she's creeping through the house, like calling out like, "Guys, come on. Joke's over." Like she has caution about her because she's waiting for them to jump out. She's not waiting for something else to jump out. It's so like we as the audience feel the tension of waiting for Michael. She has a completely different, more innocent tension building in her.
If this movie had been made today, all these scenes at night going through the darkened house and roaming around the neighborhood and all that, they would be lit competently enough that like you could see all the details, but still it reads as moonlight. That is not the case here. So much of the screen is absolutely pitch black.
Can't have a haunted house without some darkness.
True, true, true.
And then the moment she steps into that room and realizes what's happening, terror just envelops her. I love Curtis in this scene. The screams, the barely holding back tears because of the shock she's in, her panicked physical movement, her gasping breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It's so amazing. For her first film role,
She went all out.
she nailed it. This is the scene I think everybody should watch if you want to get an understanding that Jamie Lee Curtis has been that bitch for a while.
Very, very true.
Michael then chases Laurie into the kitchen, where Laurie escapes and runs back to the Doyle house. She gets into the house just before Michael gets close enough, sends Tommy and Lindsay upstairs, and cowers in the living room. Michael gains entry to the house and tries to attack Laurie again, only to have her stab him in the neck with a knitting needle. When she runs to that first house screaming for help, and the person turns on the porch light, looks out the window at her, and then immediately turns the light off and goes back into whatever they were doing, I would never let that person ever forget they almost left me out there to die. Like, I'd pass them in the grocery store and be like, "Oh, hey, Ethel May, remember that one Halloween where the homicidal maniac was, like, after me and killed my friends, and you saw me screaming for help on your porch, and you just went right back to sleep?" I would just be such a petty bastard about it.
Help me, please!
Yeah, rightfully so. But also, I would say that's probably the most realistic scene in this movie.
Oh yeah, someone's screaming for help and people just going, "Nope."
That's human nature, baby.
Notice how the moment Laurie steps back into Tommy's house, the music stops again. Because for that brief moment, there is no danger. Laurie's safe. And then the second she notices the open side window, it starts right back up. Same thing with that knitting needle stab. Like the music kind of slows a bit, but it's still going as she's sitting there trying to compose herself after stabbing him in the neck. The music in this film is used so well. So well. Like, god damn, John Carpenter.
He did not need to go that hard. In all these times where attempts are made on Michael's life and things that should kill him, no one ever checks the body to see if it's dead. After the first time, understandable. You don't expect him to get back up from a knitting needle in the neck. But they kill him a couple more times, and they just run away.
No, I think you're right, but I think that also plays into the panic that people are experiencing. Like that adrenaline goes, you're not thinking properly in that moment, especially with someone like Laurie, who has clearly never been in any kind of situation like this before.
True. And with all the screaming bloody murder that she does out in the neighborhood, you'd think Loomis would have heard her sooner.
Tunnel vision. He's like, "Screaming woman, I don't have time."
I'm trying to find a deranged killer. Stop screaming, damn it.
She then goes upstairs to console the frightened kids, but Michael suddenly appears again, and the kids hide in the bathroom while Laurie hides in a closet. Michael breaks through the closet doors and grabs at Laurie, but she quickly grabs a clothes hanger and jabs it into Michael's eye. Distracted and in pain, he drops his knife, prompting Laurie to grab it and plunge it into his chest. With Michael presumably dead again, Laurie sends the kids to get help, which attracts Dr. Loomis. He arrives and discovers that Michael has gotten up again, this time attempting to strangle her. Loomis then shoots Michael 6 times, causing him to fall off a second-story balcony to his supposed death. But seconds later, when Loomis looks over the balcony, Michael's body is gone. Loomis stares off into the distance as Laurie sobs in terror. Tommy asking Laurie, "How do you know he's gone?" And her response,
I killed him.
And that's where you're wrong, bitch.
Yep, Tommy's right on the money. Can't kill the boogeyman.
Tommy is probably the second smartest person in this entire film.
Yeah, he gets it.
Also, so when she stabs Michael with the coat hanger, do you think that's what one of those afterbirth abortions the Republicans keep going on about look like?
Oof.
I mean, Roe versus Wade must have been a hot topic in the 70s, I was told. The curtains are just blue. The curtains are just blue. It's fine.
The coat hanger's just blue.
I want to point out the points in which I believe Loomis had hit Michael when he emptied that revolver into him. So the first hit seems to be directly into his neck, because he hits him kind of when, like, at the side of Michael, and the way his head goes, it wasn't in his arm. It looked like it was directly in his neck. And then he put 4 more into his upper chest at least. And I don't know where the 5th one went, I'll be honest. The 5th one's the one that knocked him off the balcony. And I'm only assuming this all based on the way he was thrown back, but the shots that he was getting on him, this should have killed anybody.
Yeah, a lot of things that happened to him should have killed anybody. Maybe not a coat hanger to the eye, maybe that wouldn't kill a person, but that would certainly incapacitate any other human. But our sweet Zen Michael, he keeps his cool.
He really does. Laurie doesn't keep her cool, though. She hits Loomis with that line. So keeping in mind that Laurie has no idea who this Loomis guy is, all she knows is this guy came in, yelled at Michael, and shot him multiple times, right? And she turns to this man and asks him,
"What's the boogeyman?"
Now, with this line, we can clearly see how broken Laurie is. She is so broken that she's reverted back to equating Michael to fictional monsters. Much after she kept protesting to Tommy, the boogeyman doesn't exist.
True. She discovered that this is not a human.
I think it's one of the most powerful lines in the entire film, because it's showing what has this experience done to Laurie. And then we have the last moment here where we see Michael has disappeared. And then they do this really cool thing. We get all of these shots of where Michael has been tonight, and you just hear the same heavy breathing we've heard coming from him the entire time. To me, I feel like this is symbolizing that the things that go bump in the night never truly die. They'll always live on in the stories that are told in like small towns like this. Kind of bringing it back to that small town, spooky, scary, haunted house style. No matter what happens, that house is always haunted.
This is solidifying that Michael could be and is anywhere.
And folks, that's the breakdown.
We broke it all the way down.
Whew. I think I need a candy bar break. Don't tell my doctor.
All right, but only if there's capitalism involved.
You're in luck, Steve, because there is capitalism in this quick little ad break we're about to have.
Yay!
Hey, folks, did you know that we're a couple of corporate whores? We will do whatever you say for money. That's right. We'll give an ad that promises the world to your potential customers for whatever you're trying to sell. Is it true? Doesn't matter. Is it going to work? Still doesn't matter. Give us $5, give us $10. We'll make all your dreams come true as long as your dreams are limited to having your product hawked on our podcast.
But Steve, what if I don't have an advertisement written for you?
Well, for a small extra fee, we can write one for you, aka make one up on the spot and half-ass it.
That's right, folks. If you have any interest in advertising with us, please, please, please hit us up on our Instagram at That Sounds Terrible Pod, or find us on Twitter by looking up That Sounds Terrible, Go On.
Slide into our DMs so we can slide into your ads. We're going to do an ad for you.
That's right, folks. Fill our bank accounts so we can line your pockets with that sweet, sweet internet money. Welcome back, folks.
Hey, you're still here. Look at you.
I am very surprised they are still here. I thought they'd be scared off by now, Steve.
Yeah, all sorts of spooky things been happening. People getting stabbed, people getting strangled, people getting stabbed again.
Shot a few times, getting up, getting shot again. It's crazy.
Right through the heart. And you're to blame. You give love a
Little bit!
Oh, just a little bit. That's right, folks. Little Bits is the part of the pod where we get to the things that maybe we didn't get to say, or maybe some things we learned along the way. That being said, Corey, do you have any bits?
It took John Carpenter 3 days to compose and record the score.
Damn.
Right? Because as we've talked about previously, this has gone on to be one of the most recognizable themes in all of film. However, what's more impressive with this is that Carpenter himself has admitted he can't read music sheets.
Wow. So he's just like a savant.
He just had the tune in his head and knew how to put it down.
He's got the music in him. Don't let go.
Steve, you got a little bit?
In the beginning of the movie, when Loomis is heading out to go hunt down Michael Myers, he's at the institute or the hospital or wherever he works, and he's walking to his car. He is parked in a handicapped spot, and he does not have a handicap placard.
Steve, you gotta understand. He's the good guy.
Corey, you got a bit?
Now, we talked about the actress Kyle Richards, who played Lindsay Wallace, the child Annie is babysitting in the film. However, in a weird turn of events, I'm going to make my little bit in regards to Richards herself. So Richards started off young as a child actress, but in her adult years, she would be one of the first women to appear on the reality TV show The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
No.
She is the only original cast member that is still full-time on the show. But Steve, if that wasn't weird enough, she's also the half-sister of one Kathy Hilton, whom you may know as the wife of Richard Hilton, the man who started the Hilton chain of hotels in 1993. You're more likely, though, to have heard about their daughter, Paris Hilton.
That is wild.
I was just looking at roles like, okay, have they done anything else? And I saw all of this. My mind was completely blown.
Yeah, that's insane. Also, if she's a professional actress, does she really count as a housewife? Come on, television.
She's kind of stopped acting, I think, in like the early 2000s.
And when did she start on Real Housewives?
I want to say it was 2010.
Oh, that was 2010.
I guess her half-sister, Kathy, was also a child actress, so I think maybe that was just something that their parents started them in. I don't know if Kathy has been in anything I've ever seen. I didn't want to look that hard, because it's been a long day.
It has.
Steve, you got a bit?
So, the bullies on Halloween night from earlier in the film are trying to get one of their own to go up to the Myers house. And Dr. Loomis is watching all this unfold. But he doesn't try to scare them off until after the one kid has already walked up to the door and like doesn't hear him anymore. And all the other kids are scared away. Loomis could have stepped in sooner.
Do you think that Loomis was maybe trying to see if they'd draw Michael out?
Maybe. God, the more we think about Loomis, the more he sucks.
He's already parked in the handicap spot. What other evils could this man do?
That's why he knows Michael is pure evil.
Evil knows thyself.
Exactly. Corey, you got any more bits?
I have a big bit to go over here.
Ooh.
So I want you to strap in.
All right, hold on. All right, go ahead.
So Steve, I sent you a graphic so that you can follow along with this as I go through it. And I will be sure, folks, to post this same graphic to the Instagram after this episode airs. So unlike others, the Halloween franchise has multiple different timelines based on little plot details in the film that you're watching. It can get very incredibly confusing, but I'm going to try my best to break this down verbally. So I just want to kick it off. All except for the Rob Zombie films start with 1978's Halloween. That's because the Rob Zombie films are just remakes. They're only connected to each other. Now, the first timeline I'll tackle is the timeline where Michael and Laurie are revealed to be siblings in Halloween 2. This then splits off into two other timelines, one where Laurie has a daughter and one where Laurie has a son. In the one where Laurie has a daughter, that is followed after Halloween 2 by 1988's Halloween 4, 1989's Halloween 5, and 1995's Halloween 6. Those are the canon of a timeline known to fans as the Thorn timeline. So in that, my understanding is like Michael was actually kidnapped by a cult and made evil, and they're called the Thorn cult. Someone on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I, again, have not seen any other of these films. Next up, we have the one where Laurie has a son, which is, again, followed after Halloween 2, with 1998's Halloween H2-0, then 2002's Halloween Resurrection. This is known as the H2O timeline. Only difference, my understanding, is that Laurie has a son. That's it. The next timeline would be where Michael and Laurie are not siblings. The timeline here follows the original Halloween. And then it goes to the 2018's Halloween, then 2021's Halloween Kills, which is then followed by 2022's Halloween Ends. This is known as the Blumhouse timeline. Again, I have zero idea what is truly different in these other than Michael and Laurie aren't siblings. I haven't seen them. I don't really know any of the plot in it other than Laurie captures Michael, and that's all I know. I got nothing else for that. Sorry, folks. We'll get there. I'll get there. Someone will get there. So those are the three different timelines, right? However, Steve, you may have noticed I haven't mentioned 1982's Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up.
So, Halloween 3 has nothing to do with Michael Myers and company. It was designed as a way of making the Halloween franchise into an anthology series instead, where each Halloween film would be about some scary story that takes place on Halloween. However, it failed so hard at the box office that for the fourth one, they went back to Michael Myers. So if anyone's listening and you don't want to continue with the Halloween franchise, you can just watch Halloween 3 by itself.
That's wild. Okay. This is baffling to me that there have to be this many timelines in Halloween franchise. Because the first movie, the only one I've seen, sets it up perfectly. The movie was made in 1978. It says it takes place in 1978. On Halloween. It has to be on Halloween. The movie's called Halloween, right? Just make each film after it. Okay, Halloween 1981. And now it's Halloween 1982. And so on and so on. I'm flabbergasted at how complicated this is.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. And it got just even more confusing with the Blumhouse timeline because the rumor was, oh, hey, Blumhouse is going to be producing a new Halloween film. It's going to be called Halloween. Okay, that's a weird choice, but they literally did that to separate themselves from the other two already established timelines. Why? Why not just pick one and roll with it? Why not just build off something? I don't get it. Again, one day I will watch all of these. I promise I will watch all of these one day. But you're right, I'm flabbergasted myself. It doesn't make any sense to do this. The only one I could truly forgive is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Because if they really felt like, okay, we have to give a part 2, we have to give a proper conclusion to Michael Myers, which I'm assuming it does, proper in quotation marks. Oh, where do we go from here? Oh, we'll do another Halloween film. We'll just make it into an anthology. But the problem that they do with this is because you've already established Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, which were both very big films, the very next year after Halloween 2, you release Halloween 3, everyone's like, oh, Michael Myers is back. Nope. So no one goes to see it. You've literally just screwed yourself, Hollywood executives.
Yeah, poor choices.
God.
Poor choices all around.
Little bits!
Oh, just a little bit.
All right, folks, now it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
Oh, the Untitled Ben Affleck segment?
That's right, Steve. It's As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
Now, for those who've never listened in, As Played by Ben Affleck
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
is when we choose a character from the film we just watched to replace with Ben Affleck. Now, there are 3 eras of Ben Affleck that we have to choose from, so we choose a character to replace with Ben Affleck, what era, and why. First off, we have the Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck, which is when he was the indie darling just starting to get into action films. Next up, we have the Jiggly era Ben Affleck. This is the rom-com starting around the release of the Jiggly film. Then we have Batfleck era Ben Affleck, where he's older, more chiseled, and got that beautiful salt and pepper beard. Now, with that being said, Steve, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
I am going to be replacing Sheriff Brackett with Batfleck era Ben Affleck. I think the extra bulk and the salt and pepper really establishes him as someone who is big and a cop, but also a dad. I think that flies. I can see him being super inept. Corey, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck, what era, and why?
I am going to have to replace Bob Sims, the boyfriend, lover of our dearly departed Linda. And I'm going to have to replace him with, of course, Jiggly era Ben Affleck. Give me the douchiest of douches in this role. I can totally see him with those giant glasses on, the whole 9 yards. I could see it. And then it makes it even funnier when they only go for like 30 seconds in bed. Again, a quick little pop-up with that. Just replace him. You could honestly change John Michael Graham out with anybody and it would be fine. He's there to get killed and have horrible sex. And I think Jiggly era Ben Affleck deserves that.
Agreed.
All right, folks, that's going to be as played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
And of course, it's leading us to our final question, which of course is, Steve, would you watch this film again?
You know, I think I would. Horror is, as we've established, not a genre that I watch often, but this is just such a well-made film. Performances are great. The suspense is great. It's a good time. I would definitely watch this again. Corey, would you watch this film again?
Yes, absolutely. I would put this in my top 10 favorite horror films. I don't know if I could name a particular order or what number it would be at this point. I'd have to think about that, but this was so good. Great pacing, great writing. Even the acting from the kids was pretty solid. These felt like kids being kids. Nobody here suffered from a case of being a child actor.
That's true.
And I gotta just say, again, Michael Myers, easily in my top 1 or 2 spot for favorite horror villain. Just the complexity behind him as everything unfolds, while not seeming complex at all. Absolutely genius. I want to learn more about him.
Yeah, he does so much by doing so little.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up 1978's Halloween.
Oh, we did it.
We sure did, buddy. We're wrapping up Spooky Month, and we're going to be taking a few weeks off, but we got a special holiday coming up still, don't we?
Oh, yeah. The great American tradition of Hugh's Giving.
Hugh's Giving, Steve?
Hugh's Giving.
That's kind of weird, man. I don't know about that.
Well, you know, there's a certain science to it.
Wait, hold on. Science, weird, John Hughes. Do you mean to tell me we're about to do 1985's Weird Science, written and directed by John Hughes?
Weird Science? Yes, I am.
Oh my god, I am so excited. I've never seen this one before, and it's been on my short list for a hot minute, so I cannot wait to dive into this, especially for the great holiday known as Hugh's Giving.
Absolutely, it's going to be a great time.
Well, Steve, until we get there, we'll have to hold off on getting a little weird and a little sciencey.
I'll try. No promises.
But until then, folks, I've been Corey.
I'm usually Steve.
Bye!
Bye! Drive slow, homie.